All right, so this section is we got to cover some square roots, radicals, before we get into graphing, parabolas, and things like that. So we're going to start here with just kind of talking about square roots and those rules, and this may be a review for a lot of people. But let's kind of talk about what a square root is. A root of a number is one that is being multiplied by itself. You can have cubic roots, you can have fourth roots, but typically what you're going to see is what is called square roots. So square root of number, if b squared equals a, then b is the square root of a. So if you look at this example, 3 squared equals 9. We know that. We can type that into our calculator. So 3 is the square root of 9. All right, square roots are written with a radical symbol. You can have a square root, which you can think of, there's a little 2 there. You could have a cubic root, which is a 3, would be a 3 here. A fourth root, and it could go on as many type of roots as you want. It just matters, the root is just how many times that number is multiplied together and what is the root of that, basically that exponent. So whenever you see a radical sign, it is assuming that it is a square root, meaning the 2. All right, so all of these are like, hey, what number times itself equals 64? In this case, it's 8. Sometimes they put the negative outside, so it will be a negative 8. The square root of 0 is 0, and if you see a plus or minus here, plus or minus, square root of 64 is still 8. Now, there are no two numbers that are the same that are equal to a number, meaning I cannot take the square root of a negative 64, because the only way you can get negative 64 is if one's a positive, one's a negative, and that does not make sense, right? Because you can't have one of each if you're squaring it. So if you ever put in the negative 64, that would be come up as an error on your calculator. Now on your calculator we have the radical symbol, so we're going to locate that. I'm going to bring up my Desmos calculator. Calculators at home are going to have that. So this makes this section pretty straightforward and easy in a sense, because all you are doing, oops, where is that? All you're doing is looking for this symbol. Now this is if you're going to use a different root, but we have this here, so this is the button we're looking for. So when we hit that, it comes up with our square root symbol. So if I am doing the math on these, and these are all perfect squares, if I want to find the square root of 100, you can think, what is two numbers that are the same that multiplied equal 100? To be 10 and 10, but you can just type it in, and you will see that it gives you 10 as your answer over here. All right, so this plus or minus, the positive or negative square root of 100 is 10. And again, I'm putting these signs out here. You're not usually going to see those, but sometimes you will. So the square root of 25, if you have this already in your calculator, you just type in that 25 and you can see it's 5, because 5 times 5 equals 25. What's the square root of 36? Some of you guys can already do these in your head. This is probably a review for most. 6. And then our last example, what is the square root of 16? And you get 4. All right, you could do the square root of any number, but not all. These are just perfect squares. They come out nice and neat. If I did the square root of 26, for example, we can look at that. And you can see it comes out as a really long kind of decimal, so that equals 5 point, we'll just call it 1, because that's going to round up to the nearest tenth. But we are now estimating numbers. There's a way to simplify radicals that we're going to talk about later in the section, so that we don't have these crazy long decimals and we can work with exact numbers, but we're not focusing on that now. All right, the next part is evaluating radical expressions. So this is kind of going off of what we did in our last chapter, where we talked about substitution a little bit. All you're going to do for this, and all I want you to practice on this, because this is going to come in later with quadratics, is to substitute the numbers into this equation. All right. And you could just use your calculator for it. This would be if you're showing your work all the way, how you would do orders of operations. But for this case, I just want you to practice typing it into your calculator. Now, we talked about substitution, how I want you to do that. Anytime you see a letter, I want you to put a parentheses. So a parenthesis squared minus 4 parenthesis parenthesis. All right, so that's what we're going to use for both of these. I'm going to go ahead and write this here. I want to see you guys get used to writing this out. And we use the parentheses because sometimes if there's a negative number and a squared, that will throw off your answer if you do not use the parentheses. So I just like to always use it when we are doing these types of problems. All right, after you do this with your parentheses, now you just have to look at your original equation. We have a B, an A, and a C, and just put the numbers in where they belong. So I have a 3, here's my B, my A is a 2, my C is a negative 5. All right, over here, B is an 8, my A is a negative 1, and my C is a 20. Now from here, all you have to do is take out that trusty calculator and enter it exactly as you see it. The parentheses will take care of all the multiplications, so we don't have to hit the times button. The calculators are smart nowadays. They do that for you. So if I'm going to do it all in one step, I'm going to put the radical. Now I'm going to type in as I see it. I have my parentheses. I have 3. Close off that parenthesis. I'm going to put the squared here. You can just put the 2 there. It's automatic. If it was a 3 or a 4, you'd hit that and put a different exponent. Minus 4, parenthesis 2, parenthesis negative 5, and there you go. Gives you your answer of 7. All right, so if you're going to do this, and again, for the assignment that I believe goes with today is going to have a bunch of these problems where you're just practicing substitution. I want to see this step, and then, but once you have it in your calculator, watch how easy this is. I've already typed it in because I'm using the same equation or the same formula. I can just back these out, put the new numbers in, and it takes care of it for you. Negative 1, 20, and I get my answer as 12. And that's it. So we're getting used to using this symbol right here, understanding what it is. It is the root of a squared. You know, it's the number that is multiplied to equal another number twice. So it's just that base unit of the exponent would be the square root of that other number.